That's what they're doing, and then
I know, so I had to clean up, scrub it all up. Because they didn't agree. They did the tree, and then they said, well, we gotta move out of the back in the bay.
I can't find
Rent, so it wasn't really free, it was gonna be for rent, but they paused it because they like.
Janet, I'm gonna move him down by his mic, so I'll be in front of mine. Thank you.
Okay. So who, wait a minute, wait. Who's over there?
Nobody. That one doesn't work.
So there's 8 mics. Oh, okay, so that one does
Yeah,
not
that's
work.
an extra.
Why doesn't that one?
Oh, okay. We were just wondering.
Don't split your pants.
Yeah.
No comment.
You always have a comment.
I do.
I have a point-blank question for you. As you have gone to bat for Steve Terry,
Well, just the whole thing.
would you do the same for him?
I would, man.
You know what?
And I've actually, I
believe you.
emailed Haven of Hope and informed them of the offers that were available and encouraged them to, apply and I would stand by them.
I believe that's one of
You
the
know.
things that they changed the script, which was, the revision was you had to be in operation for a year. And so there was a reason why they partnered.
I wish he had pointed that out to me. All those little nuanced details. Of course, when you're the service provider, you're more aware, cognitive of how that
That's-
piece might affect.
Oh, you thought.
Yeah.
And if I wasn't, I wouldn't have been aware of that was what caused them to.
Right.
Yeah. Because I would have brought that up.
There's
So.
other funding sources, but, and the reason why is that our
Maybe you remember
individual.
something.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, applying, but just being discouraged.
Yeah, it's. It's just a beginning. I mean, we're certainly not where we need to be. So.
In many things, so, you can answer this, but
Okay.
no, I can't, no, I can't ask you. I wouldn't put you in that type of position.
What's that?
Because it's my understanding there's 3 police,
Exit.
but
Yeah.
over here.
We're well covered.
So, I'm like,
Hope they're not operating on some kind of inside
I
information.
mean, is there somebody on autopilot out
Yeah.
there? I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4. told his wife came with all the cheerleaders to the meet and greet right before 10 o'clock. So I told him last night, I said, let me share something with you with our community. We run on CP time. You know what CP time is. That means an hour to an hour.
I got a funny story I can share with you sometime about that.
I bet.
Yep. I learned.
What's CP talk?
Yep.
Well, now they know. Okay, this is revised.
Too much newspaper.
I guess they're,
He was all over, he had all kinds of mapping. He's a funny guy. Did he ever tell you about the plane ride he took me on? Well, we went up, we took off, we went about 60 feet, and his engine wouldn't go above 1,000 RPM. So he had to call back and say, hey, I gotta do emergency landing.
oh, said grumpy eye.
Trying to turn the plane, he turned hard, he dipped. So I'm watching the stall light, I said, stall lights on, stall lights off. We're that close, 1,500 RPM. So he finally comes around, he enters, what's it called, say there's a house right next to Larkin. I think you're gonna make it, baby. We were so close to that power line, I could see the rust on the boat. Because I could see the rust on the boat. We just got over that, and then finally we got a curve stop. We landed on the runway sideways. We made it. We come to find out what happened was the baffle in his muffler broke loose. Knocked his muffler. So that's why he could only get the muffler. Yeah, airflow coming out of the exhaust. There's apparently some kind of one of the baffles inside the muffler. And there is a bypass, but the bypass is very small, so.
Welcome to open session of the Oroville City Council meeting, July 16th, 2019, where we are reporting out of closed session, where no action was taken but direction was given. I would like to for the information of the council and members of the public, following closed session and pursuant to Article 22 of the City Charter, I have appointed Bill Lagrone as City Administrator, and he has accepted the appointment. A copy of the appointment is available from the City Clerk. He is coming in at Step G of the salary schedule with the same conditions of his existing agreement.
Congratulations, Chief. What do we call you now?
Welcome, Bill.
Bill.
Okay, will you stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? Salute. Pledge. Looking for a motion to adopt the agenda.
I move that we adopt the agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Moving on to presentations and proclamations. We have two presentations this evening. First one by PG&E.
There he is.
Good evening. Mayor Reynolds, members of the council, I'm Dan Blair with PG&E, and I'm here today to provide a very brief update on the public safety power shutoff that occurred June 8th and 9th, and to address any questions that the council may have or concerns they may want to share. So just a brief introduction on that event. So as we discussed last time I was here in front of the council, it's a component of our overall community wildfire safety program. When there's projected high winds, we are going to be implementing public safety power shutoffs. This was the first one that we have done here in Butte County, and it was initiated about 9 p.m. on Saturday, June 8th, and impacted just over 20,000 customers here in the Butte County area, primarily in Oroville, surrounding communities, Paradise and surrounding communities, and then those other communities in the foothills. The weather event lasted for just under 12 hours. So we de-energized those customers at about 9 p.m. And on June 9th, just after 8 a.m., we had the all clear for weather, and we began that restoration. So with that restoration beginning and inspections beginning at 8 a.m., we had the majority of customers impacted in the Oroville area on before 10 a.m. So it was roughly a 2-hour turnaround time. Reason for that is we did have transmission lines impacted by this public safety power shutoff. We were able to patrol those lines quite quickly. We had helicopters on standby ready to go. So as soon as we had the all clear at that 8 a.m., we patrolled those lines and were able to get customers turned back on quite quickly. There were, I believe, of all the customers impacted throughout the county, about just before 6 p.m. was the latest for any customers, but the bulk of customers had been restored previously. Some of the factors that went into this decision were there was a red flag warning. We had a high risk forecast from the predictive services for North Ops, for our weather partners. We had a critical weather fire forecast from the Storm Prediction Center. We had intel on the ground showing high wind speeds, and that was really the biggest factor, was this predicted wind speeds. And we did see wind upwards towards 50 miles per hour during that event. There were low humidity levels, and then we had real-time data from all of our PG&E weather stations. So that essentially went into the event. Overall, the response time for patrolling and restoration, we were quite pleased with. Certainly, as with an event of this nature, there are things we could improve on, and I believe I'm here to hear any concerns that the council might have. So I'm open to any questions.
Thank you. We have a couple members in the queue. Vice Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Good afternoon. Thank you for coming. Just to be quite frank, to me, this is just unacceptable. Is the shutoff, is that specifically for rural or wildland areas? Because from my understanding, it's something specifically to deter fires more within a wildland area of such circumstances like the campfire. Is that correct? Or is this meant for rural cities like ours?
So this is meant for the Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas as designated by the California Public Utility Commission. So they've released their high fire threat map, which shows Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3, with Tier 2 being elevated, and then Tier 3 being the highest risk. So this really impacts our PG&E lines in those Tier 2 and Tier 3 areas. The way the grid is designed, many of our distribution and transmission circuits go through both. So although the city of Oroville itself may not be in a high fire threat area, the lines serving it are. Similar in the town of Paradise. The town of Paradise is considered Tier 1, the town proper, but surrounding areas are considered high fire threat. So if those lines are traversing that area, it could impact areas that aren't, just because of how the grid is designed.
I understand this is also something new that you are implementing, correct?
Correct.
So you need to work out a lot of bugs in it, right?
This is the second year. We did initiate the program last year.
So with that, if this is something that's going to be ongoing, then I personally would demand that you either recategorize our town or you rewire where our electricity is coming from, because the time that the reality is the time that the power shut down, and we all know there was no wind during that time. I understand before that was wind, but when the power got shut off, there was no wind. The threat was really over, and so when you have a town like ours, I'm in Thurbolino, there's barely any trees out there.
Sure.
And our power shut off. I also manage property in town here, and the power shut off there. And again, there's just like, okay, what's the threat? I understand, again, the campfire was the catalyst for this decision when you're talking about power lines that are up in the mountains that are hard to get to, and so during that time to monitor all that, but that's not Oroville. So if this is going to be an ongoing issue, then I would demand that Oroville, the power that coming to Oroville needs to be rewired from somewhere else. Categories need to be adjusted, because really for us to be shut off is unwarranted.
I understand that concern, and a couple things I want to clarify, and then I want to address specifically your concern. This program, the PSPS, the Public Safety Power Shutoff, this was implemented and in motion prior to the campfire. So we did. This program has been has gained momentum, and the partner regulated utilities in Southern California have been doing this for some time. So the CPUC has really used that as a model to say we want that program up here as well. So the change this year is we do now have transmission lines included where they weren't last year. So that is a big change going from last year to this year. And yes, it is something we're still working the bugs out, and we're not gonna. This is part of that process is hearing from our partner jurisdictions of what we can do better on. The point you made about how Oroville is served specifically, we are looking at what we're calling resilient zones, and they're exactly what you're saying is communities that are not in high fire threat areas. Can we localize them through switching, through rerouting, through localized generation, and keep those communities on during a PSPS? Every situation is different, as you can imagine, because every community is going to be served by different lines, and those transmission lines really are going to be the catalyst for shutoffs, because if they're going over high fire threat areas of any part of that line, and the weather is predicted in that area, that transmission line could go down. So that means generation could potentially be impacted, and that's what's going to impact areas. So
I understand that. And my last comment is, because I know this is in regards to public safety.
Yes.
However, it's kind of a catch-22, because in the heat of summer in Oroville, when we have a lot of people here who are very sensitive to high heat, and so when you shut off their power, you're putting their lives in jeopardy, and again, in my opinion, unduly so. And so if this is something that's going to be happening more often in this area, then to not put our citizens in jeopardy, something needs to be done to rewire the power to come to us, or like you said, localize it, or whatever needs to be done, but to unduly put our citizens at risk to potentially save lives is, to me, you're actually going the other direction.
Sure. Understand it. It's a public safety decision, and it's not an easy one. And as you can see, it's difficult. So what I'd like to do is propose that I can bring some of my engineers at PG&E, those that know the grid and know how to potentially reroute and restructure, sit down with city staff and talk about what those options might look like, and if there are opportunities to generate locally and find those opportunities.
I would love to see that happen as soon as possible.
Councilmember Pittman.
Thanks, sir. I know that the necessary need for this is present. The difficulty in your old system having a new requirement is kind of met by a lot of interesting factors. One is in the rural residential area where you have vegetation that is subject to broken line, there's a reasonable expectation this is shut down. But when we have our downtown core of city businesses that has no wildland threat, no way in the world to have that shut down completely. It kind of goes to what Vice Mayor was saying. if nothing else, we could count on our city core having service. Example, our municipal auditorium could be a cooling shelter. You know, I happened to be in the State Theater, and we found out how when the power went off watching a movie, it was the best part of the movie, and you didn't get a lot of positive comments all that night, I'll tell you. But there's a big difference in what's off and on. In my house, I live up on the hill, and my power was on. And I live in a rural area, and behind me there's a 40-acre field that could come right up the back. But across the street, the power was off. So everybody's saying, well, how come yours was on? You know, so it creates that problem.
Sure.
So if there's a way, and I understand what we're talking about. We're really talking about a lot of switch installations here.
Yeah.
And down the line, that may be the new system. So you could localize the power distribution to the core commercial area, because I know many businesses had to go to extreme expense. I'll give you credit for giving us the notice, because everybody had time to get prepared. But they're bringing in reefer vans to load up all the frozen food out of a grocery store. They're bringing in all kinds of things. A lot of staff had a lot of extra work to do. And then once they loaded up the refrigerator vans, then they had to unload them the next day.
Yeah.
So your communication was good. I'll grant you that. Communication was good. We kind of knew when. But, you know, there's off and ons here, and we need to refine what's going to go off and what's going to go on. And I appreciate the discussion. Be happy to sit down with engineers. I've been around the system a long time, and I served the fire service, so I understand why my power is still on, because I'm part of the old grid, not part of the new grid. And I know what goes down and what comes off when something happens. So we really have to look at that. The other thing I'd like to suggest is down the road, some kind of program for communities like this that could get alternative generator power or battery backup power or generator power to critical facilities in a community. Example, our municipal auditorium. You know, it'd be nice to have a generator set there that we could turn on and know it's coming, and at least house our you know, critical people that need to be in cooling shelters, those kind of things.
Sure.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you coming.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll never try to downplay the impact I know this has to our residents and commercial businesses. It's very impacting. Again, the why one customer across the street from one another could go out really comes down to, as you said, the design of the grid and what substation and what circuit is being served to your property. And had this map been created by the California Public Utility Commission when we designed the system would be built differently.
Right.
The reality is it's not. It's a current challenge with a
Oh, it's a huge
over
challenge,
system.
without
So,
question. I appreciate your discussion.
absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councilmember Draper.
My concern is that we have a lot of elderly people in this city, and I'm concerned about people that are on oxygen or have COPD, other issues where they're using, they need electricity to operate those devices. Is there anything in place to help those individuals that have problems like that, and the power goes off and then they're just stranded?
Sure. So a couple things are in place. We did establish a customer resource center at Oroville Union High School that we had up on by the morning of the 9th that did have generators for cooling and charging of medical devices and cell phones with cold water and PG&E information available there. That's something that we are going to deploy wherever we have an outage. We're going to have these ready to go and stood up very short notice. I realize that there may be some folks that don't have the transportation or the opportunity to get there. I'm having regular conversations with County Public Health and Social Services about filling some of these gaps.
Okay.
In the case of the event, and this is going to be our practice for any outage, for our medical baseline, which are folks that have a discounted electricity rate for having home medical equipment.
Right.
So we have that information, and we have them ready to go. So what we're doing for those folks is we're doing direct phone calls. If that rep can't get a hold of them, the same rep's going to call them back. if we can't get them a second time through a phone call, we're going to send most likely one of our gas service reps who are not working on the electric restoration to their door. If we're not able to get them with a knock on the door, we're going to leave a door hanger with information about the event and who to call if they need help.
Okay.
So realize it's not perfect, and we're absolutely open to expanding that to reach as many folks as we can. I also sat down as soon as the event was happening, and I did notifications, met with county social services, and they have their notification system that they use specifically for groups that they work with. So they deployed that as well with information that I provided.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a couple of comments, and I think, and I've heard this from a lot of folks in our community, and that's the consistency issue, and I think that's already been pointed out. So you could drive through town, you know, one side of the street's hot, the other is not. One of our casinos had no power, the other did, both in the wildlife area. And so you scratch your head and you go, okay, how is this ultimately helping us in in complete protection, if that's what it's about? So it creates the question.
Sure.
The other piece to this is if you travel up the Oroquense Highway up toward Gold Country, there are an inordinate amount of trees that are skyscrapers over and above distribution lines, and which is very concerning. So you kind of want, and then there's one actually it's dead, and it's probably a good 20 feet above those distribution lines up there. That whole corridor
It's on
is
162
really, it's
there?
one, yes.
Okay.
And to me, that's an extreme hazard. Given I used to contract, I brought in 1,000 feet of line, and you guys made me cut down 50 of my trees, scorched earth, and it was made very clear to me that's a policy to protect from wildlife fire. So, you know, here my eyes, so I have a different set of eyes maybe than a lot of people, and I'm looking at that going, holy smoke, no pun intended. That could be a serious problem, especially in a high wind event. So I'm kind of wondering what that policy is as far as how aggressive PG&E is, or if there are limitations to vegetation removal that you're up against. You know, there might be kind of a give and take with that. I'm kind of interested in what that looks like, but you really seriously need to look at that corridor, especially with those trees. And the other part is hardening the wires or the coating, which was brought up, I think, the last time you were here.
Yes.
Which long-term is going to mitigate the need to de-energize. So could that work into this mix for perhaps rerouting lines, maybe identifying those lines that could reroute power? And let's harden those lines first so we can keep the core of the city live. Is there a policy or that kind of discussion with engineers going on? So you have, in other words, first, second, third, and then maybe what that timeline might be like. Are we talking a year from now, 2 years from now? What are we realistically looking at to begin to harden some of the infrastructure?
Sure. So I'll take the first comment about, you know, confusion about, you know, the one casino being on, one out, both in a high fire threat area. It's going to depend on where the weather is occurring. So if wherever the weather's occurring, whatever lines are in that area, those are the lines we're going to look to shut down. So there could be high fire threat areas, tier 2, tier 3 areas that are not impacted by the weather that's being predicted that will remain on. So I just want to clarify the thought process and the decision. That's how it happens. It depends on where the weather is and what assets are there. For the trees, I can't speak to specifically over there. I'll have
If you're
someone.
look you could take a ride up there and just
Will.
lay your eyes
Absolutely
on
will.
it.
And
Yeah,
I'll
it's
get
concerning.
one of our vegetation management supervisors to take a look at it. For distribution lines, for the most part, we're regulated to keep a 4-foot radial clearance at all times. That's for distribution. We typically cut back to up to 12 feet to maintain that for growth, and then also ground to sky clearance at 4 feet as well. So if there's something that's over it, it shouldn't be, we'll take a look and see what's going on over there. Definitely not transmission.
Just a curious, do you think that's really adequate? So if you have a tree, I don't want to get into the weeds too much, and there's no pun intended again,
Yeah.
but if you got a tree that's towering 20, 30 feet above, when they snap off, especially some of this
Yeah.
particular species here, they kind of launch out, and I've seen it happen.
Sure.
And so maybe that needs to be revisited.
We always strive to get the maximum clearance we can for safety. As you can imagine, we do what we can with the rights we have, and then we have to work with property owners on their rights. So we also are looking at those top species that are prone to failure and the ones that have strike potential. So that is part of the program as well,
Okay.
to expand that. For the coating, so we do have, throughout our system, we have insulated wire on our distribution system. Sometimes it's called tree wire, sometimes it's called insulated wire, coated wire, and it is essentially just a rubberized coating over that line. It is great for deterring vegetation strikes from sparking. If there is failure on a line and there's a live wire on the ground, it still has the same danger potential and fire ignition as any distribution line. So a couple points on that. One of the main drivers for these shutdowns is we want to avoid catastrophic failure to one of our lines and start a fire. So if there is failure, whether that line is insulated or not, if it's live on the ground, it could start a fire. The other point on that is that we don't coat our transmission lines. They're the high voltage lines above 60 kilovolts. Those are not it's not practical to have them coated for insulation. So we're really just talking distribution, and in the case of the campfire, that was the failure on a transmission line. So even if there was coated lines throughout the whole area, the damage to that transmission line potentially still could have occurred. So we are adding more coated lines. We are adding strength to our system through fiberglass crossarms. We're looking at high fire threat areas using alternatives to wood, such as fiberglass or concrete. We are we're trying to strengthen that. We're using more fire retardant on our system. So we're looking at a variety of factors to minimize that risk, and that's ongoing. As far as a timeline of, I think that's going to be an ongoing task for us for many years, but it is ongoing.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
So let me clarify, I'm not angry at you, but I'm definitely angry at the situation.
Understand? Yeah.
We have a city that's growing. And when you are planning on doing periodic power outages for our town, that thrusts us into third world conditions where you can't rely on the power. That is unacceptable for our community. I'm not okay with even centralizing the, a safe zone or power on zone downtown. It's unacceptable for me, for our community that really is in the flat area, especially of our community that is not, the reality not in a fire risk zone, for us to be, for me, it's just a cop-out for PG&E to shut off our power. That's the cheap route for you, for PG&E to shut off our power. If you're planning on shutting off power, then the minimum that I would be okay with is you giving away free generators to every house that you plan on doing periodic shutdowns to, because it's just unacceptable for you, for me to as a representative of our community, to be okay with this. It really is just not okay for our town. Fix your infrastructure, fix the routing, but definitely don't plan on doing what you did here just a couple weeks ago, a month ago, wherever it was. That's not okay with me by any shape, form. So either, fix the infrastructure so it's not a problem, or fix the routing, or, subsidize, find a way to meet a power on need for our community and hand out generators to everybody, give everybody a free generator.
I understand the frustration on that. And
because again, our town's growing, and so who's going to want to move to town? It's like, oh, that's a town that what businesses are going to want to come to town that going to have to bring in all their employees to unload all of their freezers and load them all back in. I mean, are you guys compensating all the stores for that, or is that out of their pocket?
we're not currently compensating them, but we do have our claims process that I encourage anyone who feels that they've had a loss due to any PG&E decision to go through. It's not an easy decision. You're absolutely right. And we're looking at those opportunities to upgrade the system to operate within
And that's
this
what
new
needs to be
world.
done is
Yeah.
upgrading.
Understood.
If there's an issue in the mountains that you need to localize that area, then localize that specifically to shut that down while keeping everybody who is not in a risk area still functioning. Because we pay, every one of us here pays for pays you.
Sure.
You know, I
Absolutely.
write a check well, it comes out of the account automatically, but I pay for this, and so I pay for consistent energy.
Yeah. Understood. I understand the frustration.
Councilmember Goodson.
I wrote down a whole list of questions, but as different council members voiced their concerns, my questions were answered. With that being said, it took guts for you to come here, and I understand that you're simply the messenger. So, thank you.
Absolutely. I'm the community steward of the company, so I understand the frustrations, and I'll be here anytime the council wants me here.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, our next presentation is on the Five Star Bank RISE program.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council. I'm Valerie Navarro with Living Elements. I think I know most of you and have been working with most of you. And to kind of segue into the conversation that we are just talking about, we are focused as a private sector company in Oroville to build resiliency for our community, which also takes
Put it down.
it's on, which also takes a measure of financial support. In order to do that, we have partnered with Five Star Bank, and it's my pleasure to introduce them to you this evening, and we're going to be presenting something called the RISE program. So with that.
Hello, Council. My name is Jerry Legg. I'm the Senior Vice President, Government Banking Manager for Five Star Bank. We are headquartered out of Sacramento. We do have a branch locally in Chico on East Lassen Avenue. I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the RISE program, let you know what it is, the history of it, the success of it, and then see if this might be something that Council might consider for Oroville. RISE stands for Responsible Investments for a Stronger Economy. And the way how this came about was there was actually two paths. You always hear municipalities talk about we need more funding into the community. We need new businesses. We need some kind of investment into the community. What they failed to see is that they already have the money. I was looking at the investment report for Sacramento County as an example. They have $1 billion with a B in certificates of deposit with foreign banks. Not even American banks, let alone community banks. So what that means is that people in Canada and in Europe are getting cheap mortgages because of Sacramento County. If they were to redirect that money into local banks that could then lend it back into the community, it would help all of Sacramento. Another example is the state does have a program like this, the time deposit program, which is managed by the state treasurer's office. Five Star Bank has got $60 million in deposits in this program, so they deposit it with us, and then we turn around and lend it back into the community. Some examples of the loans that we've done with those dollars: we funded the Sacramento Natural Foods Co-op, which is a locally owned, member-owned grocery store which serves the community, kind of like a Trader Joe's, but it's locally owned. We funded the B Street Theater, which is a regional theater that was outgrowing its usefulness. It relocated. It got new 3 different theaters in it. It's got a restaurant, a bar. These are types of loans that no major bank, any of the too big to fail banks, would have funded in Sacramento. Another example was it was a former PG&E site near the river in Sacramento where it was an old powerhouse. And we funded the conversion of that into a science center for educational purposes. So these are ways that we can take these dollars, plug them back into the community, and then help enrich the entire community. Specifically, I gave you a packet. I apologize for all the information. I'll try to go through it rather quickly. So what the RISE program does is we match the investment rate that cities, counties, special districts would have got otherwise in their deposits at the state treasurer's office. There's an investment pool called the Local Agency Investment Fund, and it's a voluntary program. Almost everybody within city government, state government knows about LAIF. That's like the standard. We match LAIF. No other bank in California matches LAIF. The rate is too high. They don't need to. They can get away with paying half of that. So we match the monthly LAIF rate. We also guarantee that we'll lend at least half of that money back into your community to create new jobs, new housing, lines of credit for existing businesses so they can grow, expand. It could be loans for generators for families. It could be whatever, but it goes back into Oroville. And I'm going to put a little asterisk next to that 50% number. The third thing is, because this is dealing with the public, it's all transparent. We commit to you that we will give you a quarterly report listing all the loans we've done, how much, when, and what the purpose was. I can't tell you who the borrowers are without their permission, but I can give you all that other information. I did give you a copy of a sample, Sacramento Municipal Utilities District. That's what this big thing is. This is a list of all the loans we've done with SMUD's deposit since November 8th. They deposited $5 million. We've done over $100 million in loans, ranging from everything from new houses, new apartments, new gas stations, new businesses, expansion, consolidating of existing debt, over $100 million in loans in their service area. And what did that cost SMUD? Nothing. What they did was they took existing investments, redirected it. They're earning the same amount. It's still collateralized. They actually have better liquidity, and they have more access to the money later in the day. Let me explain that. So with the Local Agency Investment Fund, what they do is, in order to get money into or out of this investment pool, you have to notify them by 11 a.m. With the bank, you have till 1:30 p.m. So if something comes up, there's an emergency, somebody forgot to pay payroll, we got to get the money, you can take that money out. Even though we've lent against it, you can take the money out at any time. We're still going to pay you the same rate. Also, LAIF charges fees. They charge administrative fees to recover the cost of their staff. We don't charge any bank fees. There's no maintenance fees, there's no wire fees, there's no fees whatsoever. It's free to the city. So you're earning the highest interest rate out there. You're getting reinvestment back into the community in terms of loans, which we're going to report back to you. You have more liquidity. Your money is collateralized as per state law. It seems to be too good to be true. I'm not making this stuff up. City of Rancho Cordova participates. They did a press release. They've got $10 million in the program. $5 million of it is with Five Star Bank. City of Elk Grove is participating. They've got $15 million in the program. $5 million is with Five Star Bank. SMUD has $15 million in the program. $5 million is with Five Star Bank. They're going to double their investment to $30 million, 10 of which will be with us. City of Sacramento has $75 million in the program, 40 of which is with Five Star Bank. So on the flip side, besides them earning interest, we've been doing lots of loans. So again, I said with an asterisk that we would do at least 50%. City of Sacramento has $40 million with Five Star Bank. We've done $60 million in loans for the City of Sacramento. Their council members, much bigger city, they want to make sure that every district has got loans in it. So I have to drill down to the street address to list which zip code, which street, to make sure every council member's district is being served, which it is. Rancho Cordova has $5 million in the program, which means we should have done $2.5 million in loans. We've done $11 million in loans. Elk Grove has $5 million. We should have done $2.5 million. We've done $10 million in loans. And then, as I alluded, SMUD has got $5 million. There's been over $100 million in loans in their service area. Now, keep in mind that SMUD covers not just Sacramento, Folsom, Elk Grove, Rancho Cordova, Citrus Heights, and the unincorporated areas of Sacramento County as well. So let's look at Oroville. Currently, Five Star Bank has $9.2 million in loans in Oroville. Those would not count towards any deposit you make. It would be as of the date you make the deposit going forward. Just to give you an idea of the emphasis that Oroville plays at Five Star, and again, I apologize, we do not have a branch here in town as of yet, but of that 9.2 million, 8 million of that has been lent since last August. So almost all of that is new money that's been coming into Oroville since last August. Just yesterday, I put in a proposal for the Oroville Union High School District. They're refinancing some general obligation bonds from 2009, and the bid I put in was more than 1% lower than what they were currently paying. So hopefully we'll win that bid, but if not, that means they got even a better deal. So that was for $7 million, just for that one bond. And my colleague, Dan Sozi, who's in the audience here, has been up here for probably the last month already working to try to get some loans in Oroville, even in lieu of this meeting with council tonight. A lot of people might say, well, these loans would have happened anyway. You know, you don't need our money. Well, that's not true, because what happens is when we find out we have a RISE deposit, at our sales meeting, it's put up for everyone to see. And we have 14 loan officers like myself and Dan, where we're told, okay, City of Oroville deposited $10 million. We have to lend at least $5 million out as soon as possible. All 14 people, regardless where they're located, are contacting brokers, contacting people that they know, business people, trying to get loans into Oroville as quickly as possible. And that's how we end up doing more than the minimum requirement. You can't just take your foot off the gas and say, okay, we hit it, we're done. That's not how we work. We're one of the fastest growing banks in the Sacramento Valley. We're now almost $1.4 billion in assets, all from 6 little tiny branches. We're the biggest, fastest growing bank in the area, and we don't have a lot of overhead. But if we were to get something from the City of Oroville, everything's done electronically. So you would wire money in, there's no fees for that. If you were to move your relationship to us, we'd love to take it. What we would do is set up armored car service, again, free of charge. So everything is free to municipalities. I used to work at the state treasurer's office. I've been on the other side. I know what it's like. You don't have a lot of staff. Everyone's overworked, not a lot of resources. That's where Five Star can help out, because we understand what it takes to run a public entity, and we're here to help. And just real quick, one of the other local entities that is coming on board is the Paradise Recreation and Parks District. Their board just voted last Wednesday to move their entire relationship over to Five Star Bank. Again, because we're not charging fees and we're paying a very high interest rate. I'm here to take any questions if you have any questions.
So, Mayor, I would suggest this is simply a presentation at this point.
Yes.
That if council has an interest in it, they direct staff to do the research and come back for an actual formal council discussion. Because remember, this is just a presentation.
Well, I'd like to see that personally.
Councilmember Pittman, did you have a question?
Just a short question. So once the investment, and then you return 50% of those deposits, and those loans are completed, is it like a revolving fund, or does it go somewhere else?
Well, actually, you still have 100% of your investment. What we lend out is not your money. We're just leveraging that. So if you deposited $10 million and you wanted to take it out, you could take all 10 million out. We would still be doing the loans based on that amount in hopes that that money is going to come back.
Right.
You bring up a good point, though, because loans are constantly having payments, so the balance is going to continue to drop. We're going to try to maintain that minimum amount as a minimum. But as you've seen from what I explained, we're trying to do as many loans as possible, because if you guys succeed, if the city grows, you get more businesses, that's more opportunities for us as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So I think we'd like to direct staff to look into that.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
And we'll
bring
come
it
back at a future agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good packet.
Okay, moving on to public communication. This is a hearing of non-agenda items. Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor. We have Cecilia Hirschman and then Fazi Morar.
Hi, I'm Celia Hirschman. I live on Montgomery Street, and I've lived here for 10 years, which is pretty much the gateway for the real community of Oroville, as I see it, much more than maybe Oro Dam, which is more the commercial district. And I think everybody would agree that when you drive down Montgomery, the trees are the most beautiful thing to look at. So last week, a 30-foot limb fell right in the middle of Montgomery, actually, and it made a huge noise. All my neighbors and I ran outside, and a few people helped us move it aside. 2 months ago, across the street, a limb fell and almost hit a car. Clearly, these two limbs that fell would have killed someone if they were in there. In the 10 years I've lived here, we've never had the trees trimmed. And I've asked many times. I made a phone call last week just to talk about this. This isn't adversarial. I really want us to keep the trees, but some of them aren't as healthy as we'd like, and they need to be maintained, not necessarily eradicated, just maintained. And I've been asked to bring this to you by the neighbors because we're all very concerned about it. I also want to mention that I just found out that Bird Street School is apparently closing, which is something I was unaware of and our neighbors were unaware of. And it's a big place for us because it's part of the community. And I ask if there's any way to keep it. I'm sure you guys are working on that because it's the oldest school in Oroville. But that we not necessarily just have them lease it to the Board of Education for more administrative stuff, but instead we try and use that as an opportunity for a trade school or something that this community really needs to grow and thrive and present more jobs. Thank you.
Fazi Morar.
Greetings. My name is Fawzi Murrar. I am the owner of Discount Books at 1515 Myers Street, Myers and Robinson. I've been there for 25 years. And to tell you the truth, 25 years ago, city services were much better than they are now. And 2 points I want to talk about. That doesn't mean we have no more points that other people can talk about. But the first point I want to talk about the public bathrooms I have across the street from the bookstore. And I have people come there. They've been locked for years, by the way. And it wasn't like that 25 years ago. So things are really deteriorating. We have to have a public restroom downtown. So people been coming to my store asking me if I allow them to use the restrooms. Well, you know, mine, they are private and they are not for the public. That is one thing. Second thing, I do clean the street in front of my store. And I'm not the only one. I believe businesses in downtown, they are doing the same thing. So now these 2 points, they are very important. And I want to know, not just me, also the other people in downtown, they want to know what you are going to do. We all pay taxes and we want to see that our taxes are put in good use.
Well, this town has suffered really lean economic times for quite a while now. The Measure U tax money was awarded, and the city departments are being fully staffed. So you're going to see a lot more response to these things, rather than there was no money, there was no people. And now that is all changing. We are within the next month, Bill, we have staff coming on.
We are actually in the recruitment process right now, and we'll be doing hiring within the next probably 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
You mean things are going to change to the better in 2
Yes,
months?
sir.
Well,
Yes, sir.
That's all I want to know, and that's all what downtown people want to know.
Yes, sir.
We need to bring more people, more customers downtown. As I said, I've been there for 25 years. I have seen probably at least 100 businesses in and out of downtown. Some of them did not stay for a year. So we need more public services and to bring people in downtown.
Yes, sir.
Before
Thank
we
you.
start talking about the growth in Oroville, we have to put the public services in a place and in better place, so when people come down there, they are encouraged to come back and do business in downtown.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And I'd like to make a comment about that too. If you're shopping downtown and you need to use the restroom, you are out of luck. And they need that public restroom open. And I know we've heard that there's been vandalism, but I have also heard that the MLEs were supposed to lock it up at night, and the vandalism apparently occurs at night. So if they would do what they're asked to do, we could have the restrooms open. It seems, like an easy fix to me. The other thing is I checked around the parks in the town today, and Playtown has 2 working drinking fountains. Rotary Park has no water in its drinking fountain. The one on the corner of Bird Street and Myers, there are 2 drinking fountains that are completely dry. And so, in Ashland, Oregon, they even put out water for the dogs all through the business district. And it's really shocking, I think, for people that come here to shop, as well as the people that live here, that you can't find a restroom or a drinking fountain in our town. So now that we have some more money coming in, maybe some of it could go toward that. Just a thought.
Councilmember Smith.
Yeah, we're really trying to keep our comments limited to public comments, but Cecilia Hirschman kind of got my attention. I was driving my high-profile vehicle down High Street this past week. I had to drive down the center of the road because I wasn't able to clear a lot of the limbs. So that kind of just struck a memory chord. And then just thinking about our PG&E presentation with trees and whatnot. So we probably ought to, maybe get some eyes set on that and have a plan. So that's it. Thanks.
And Ms. Hirschman, I seen that limb at 5:30 in the morning when I was going by, and I made a call immediately. So I was unaware it landed in the street. It was on the sidewalk by the time I'd seen it. So we're sorry about that. We're moving forward, folks. Please be confident. Be just a little more patient, and we'll see big change. Are there any more speakers?
The cameraman, and then Bill Spear. There's more.
Good evening, Oroville City Council. You know me as the cameraman. Others may know me by a different name that I'm going to speak in code, either acquired by the association of the 1028 I drive on my vehicle, and that's the only way I could think they possibly got this name. I didn't put it on any speaker cards or anything like that, but it's not going to deter me or stop me from holding public officials accountable. It's just a cost of exposing corruption. I'd like to thank our city attorney for responding to my public records request. Perfect response. He understands them very clearly. I love the way he worded his response. Beautiful response, I must say. I've dealt with some city attorneys before, and I must say it was a very articulate and intelligent response, and I look forward to sending him many more requests. I'd also like to recap about our Oroville Police Department meet and greet. I had a little fun there with the water balloon fight. It was a good event. Glad to see that some of our council members attended. It's nice seeing them and attending the event as well. And I look forward to a National Night Out. That's going to be a fun event coming up next month in August. I like these events hosted by the city. It's a great way for us to get to know our police department and city employees and just have fun all around. Got stalled there. My last comment is in reference to the markings on Feather River Boulevard by as you're driving towards the Walmart really quickly. I was wondering if there's going to be any sort of more markings put on that road. It seems to be there's some confusion about where people are supposed to turn, and if you're going the opposite way towards Orodam Boulevard, you can't really tell which lane you're supposed to be in until you're right upon the light. So any comment on that would be great. Thank you.
Bill Spear, and then Sherry Bunker.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, City Council, just honored to be here tonight. Just come to encourage you all. And Bill Lagrone, congratulations. Couldn't have picked a better man for the job. For one, he's got a really cool name. Bill, which means protector. And the Bible says if we're faithful in little things, God will give us big things. And I just want you all to know how, as a citizen of Oroville, how much I appreciate your diligence, and as you continue to be faithful in the little things. There has been a change in our city, and things are growing, and this new finances, I'm real confident in the team that you've assembled to deal with the problems and move our city forward. And with that, it says in Philippians 4 to meditate on the things that are good and praiseworthy and of good report. And as I walk around our city praying for it, I see there's a lot of good, a lot of potential, a lot getting ready to happen, and I'm real excited. And so I'd like to pray for you all this evening. Father, I am so grateful and thankful for another day, for what you're doing in our city, the fine people that you've brought here, and Lord, the issues and the problems that we have to deal with, Lord, with the tragedy in Paradise and all the fires and the evacuations you have got us through it all. We thank you for our new city administrator, and we pray your blessings upon him, and for our new police chief and the new staff that you're getting ready to bring in. We pray your blessings upon all the public servants. Your word says the greatest of all will be the servant of all. So we pray for our public servants today, your protection, your guidance, your provision. In Jesus' name, amen.
Sherry Bunker, then Al Stiefel.
I'd like to say something before you speak, Ms. Bunker. Before we lose any more people, I don't think that a lot of people realize that Bill Lagrone was the longest seated chief of police in Butte County history. Thank you for that, Bill. I know that he has had the confidence and the respect of his team down there, and there wasn't one person that I had ever talked to who had anything negative to say, and that's good, strong leadership. I appreciate that.
My turn.
Ms. Bunker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. Appreciate you allowing me to speak. I wanted to congratulate the city for their event that they had on Saturday with the meet and greet with the Oroville Fire Department and the Oroville Police Department. Excellent event. I was there for the Exchange Club. We passed out little scrubby buddies, and we have a no bullying video that we passed out to people, and other child abuse prevention paraphernalia, and it was a good event. I think everybody had a wonderful time. They had the dogs doing demonstrations, the canine units, fire department was there with the smokehouse, although there was no tri-tip. I didn't understand that. But it was a good event all around, and thank you very much for sponsoring that.
Thank you.
Al Stiefel, and then Frank Johnson is the last speaker.
You got an old man here. First off, I want to let you know that I enjoy living in Oroville and I also enjoy picking up litter in Oroville. I pick up at all the parks, and sometimes I do Montgomery Street, and sometimes I do different areas in that. And I've had a great experience there. People have been kind and nice, and they tell me I'm doing a great job. And I'll tell them, well, no, not really, because I'm really looking for $100 bills. And I had this one lady come up to me with a $100 bill.
Wow.
And I said, no, I didn't want you to grab my shirt and threw it down there. And anyway, but I was also out at the event on Saturday, and I talked with the mayor and the police chief. My concern about the Bolt Tool Museum. I have been active with the Bolt Tool Museum for a lot of years and had a lot of great experiences. And like I was cleaning out a shed on my ranch that's been there for a million years, and I found this piece of equipment. I didn't know what it was, so I took it down to the Bolt Tool Museum, and it was, oh, that's a drill press dated back into 1890, and I says, well, do you want to take it and display it? And they said, we don't have any room. And so I know that they've been wanting to get rooms, and so at the Saturday meeting, I talked with the mayor and our police chief and asked, you know, what's the possibility of going ahead and expanding. Wow, have I been 2 minutes? Anyway, they said that they're going to go ahead and close. Can I?
Go ahead, sir.
Okay. And so I got some information here. This is an international magazine from Japan. And they came over and looked at the Bolt Tool Museum, and they looked at the Oroville, different things in Oroville, and they got a write-up here about Oroville because of the Bolt Tool Museum. They've got the different places here and a lot of great things. Here's another journal from back east, and it has done the same thing. They talked about the Bolt Tool Museum and all of that. Now, I talked to the Bolts, and they said they're trying to become non-expensive to the city. The mayor told me, I thought he told me that they're costing the city a couple $1,000s a month to run that Bolt Tool Museum, but they tell me that the expenses to the city are only around $200 or $200 to $300 a month. All the money they make, they turn over. So I would really like for you guys to look into keeping the Bolt Tool Museum open, and if there's a possibility of making an extension so that they can show my drill press from 1890 and a whole bunch of other stuff which he says he's got in storage. So, and if you'd like to look at these two journals, they'll be down at the Bolt Tool Museum. And this one from Japan is really pretty interesting, except you can't read anything. I can't read anything. But anyway, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I believe the conversation, sir, was not about keeping the museum open. It was, you asked us if we would pay for an addition to the building to build, to house your tool. And we were unable to commit to that. So I appreciate your comments, sir. Thank you.
Our last speaker is Frank Johnson.
Good afternoon, Mayor and City Councilor. I am Frank Johnson. Amen. And I just want to say that I walk the Martin Luther King Park 5 days a week, 2 miles a day. And out there, the stadium, or whatever you want to call it, behind there, the homeless, every now and then, use the restroom. Not only number one, number two. And it looks bad. And so if we get the city to clean it up, you know, they go, the park people, they come out there, but they don't go behind the building and check it out. Right now, it's number poop behind the building. And we just had the event Saturday. So it got to happen Saturday night or sometime during that time. So I walked that park, me and 2 other ladies. Walked that park 5 days a week, 2 miles a day. So we don't like to see that. And he was out there one day last week because something was going on with one of the people that drives up and do whatever they do. So we just asked that the park people could check that area more often and clean it up.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson.
I'd like to respond to that.
Yes.
That happens to be Martin Luther King Park is not operated, it's not maintained by the city of Oroville. That is under the jurisdiction of Feather River Parks District. So I would encourage you to reach out to the general manager there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith, did you wish to speak?
Yeah, I just wanted to say a general comment about our museums, whether it's Bolt Museum, which is listed in the Smithsonian Institute. These are wonderful treasured assets that we have in our community, and sometimes it's hard to quantify the value as it pertains to bringing business dollars to our community, but I want you to know, being involved in lodging and tourism as long as I was here in our town, that a lot of people come here to check out what we have, and so they're treasured assets, and sometimes it's hard to quantify cost versus benefit, and I just have to say that our museums are a treasured asset, and they do bring dollars to our community, and they're worth every penny.
Thank you. Are there any more speakers?
There are no more speakers.
Okay, moving on to consent calendar, looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar.
I'd like to have item 4 pulled.
Two council members in the queue. Did you wish to speak, Councilman?
I was going to speak on the issue of the museums real quick. One of the treasured assets we have is not just the facilities of the museums, but our docents. And our docents are huge, I want to say, advocates for our community. And we actually have people from other cities coming to Oroville to be a docent in our museums here. So there's a group of about 40 or 50 people. I would encourage not only and support the docents, but anyone else thinking about helping out the city with a docent, I would encourage you to come and participate. It's a wonderful activity, and they do a wonderful job explaining the museums and the facilities that we do have. Just wanted to add that to Eric's comment.
Thank you, Councilman Pittman. Okay, looking for a motion to adopt the consent calendar, pulling item number 4.
I make a motion to adopt the consent calendar minus item number 4.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Okay, item number 4 has been pulled. Professional services agreement between the city of Oroville and Tom Lando Consulting. Councilmember Goodson, you pulled the item. Would you wish to comment?
Yes, I do. I pulled it because this agenda item clearly states that if the mayor acts and appoints a candidate to fill the full-time position of city administrator, it will be necessary to enter into an agreement to keep Mr. Lando as a consultant. Mr. Lando will work with the appointed person to help develop the appointed person. So with that being said, this evening, the mayor appointed Bill Agrone to the city administrator position. Inclusive in this appointment was a salary adjustment from 143, correct me if I'm wrong, thousand to 175,000. That's a substantial rate of increase of $32,000. With that being said, I believe that at $175,000, what we are telling the constituents is that Bill Agrone is a very qualified, both in education and experience, amply qualified for this position. And with that being said, I consider you to be an expert that does not need anyone to come alongside of you to help develop you, the appointed person, at a rate not to exceed $84,000.
Are you through with your question? I'd like to comment if you are.
Please.
Mr. Lando is being hired as a consultant by the city due mainly to the campfire issues and his expertise in these areas. He is in the middle of a lot of things that are going on with the city due to the campfire that we would, it would be to our disadvantage to interrupt those negotiations. And Mr. Lando has agreed to stay on to take care of a lot of these items. Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
Pardon me. Well, adding this up with Mr. Legrone receiving $175,000 a year at the top of the salary schedule, which means that he has the experience, he has the education, which he does not. And I like Mr. Legrone, he's a nice person, but his degree is in criminology, right? And we've had applicants that had degrees in city administration and planning. They were not interviewed. We interviewed 2 people. One was Mr. Legrone. Okay, so now here we are with Mr. Legrone receiving $14,583 a month, Mr. Lando receiving $7,000 a month. That's $21,583 a month for 1.5 city administrators. And annually, that's $259,000. And I don't see Chico hiring an assistant to help deal with the campfire. They have a city manager who's dealing with that. So to my way of thinking, we're spending a lot of money here for something that should be done by the individual who's the city administrator.
I'd like to comment on that. I don't think that Chico had the same situation as us where they didn't have their position filled and we happened to fill it. And when we filled the position here, it voided Mr. Lando's contract. He already had a contract in place. Councilmember Hatley.
Oh, thank you. What a I'm trying to figure out, because I didn't see on here where it says under the fiscal impact, the total budget for the city administration, but it doesn't tell me what account we're going to be paying this money out of. Is it, because I know we receive money from the campfire, from the state or feds. I mean, where's this money coming from?
That money is actually general fund dollars that were funded into the budget for the city administrator position as all salary dollars. That's not salary and benefit, just salary dollars. And what we're anticipating.
I'm not talking about the administrator, I'm talking about the consultant fee.
It will be coming from that account.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
For now, what we were hoping as time goes by, at the last council meeting, we applied for a grant that included planning and consultation and things like that regarding the impacts of the campfire. We would be utilizing those dollars if that grant comes through in January. Also with SB2, the city is earmarked for $186,000 specifically for campfire impact planning issues. So those dollars to pay this contract, which is an amount not to exceed, would be from that grant-funded dollars.
So this is kind of the money that we'd get on the grant would, if we get the grant. No, we don't have the grant, correct?
We do not have either grant yet.
Okay. And when do we expect to hear on that?
The one will be in January. Tom, I don't know if you're familiar with SB2 when that award will be.
SB2, I think it's also in January. Basically, it's an assured amount to the city, assuming the city actually applies and goes through the process. And as Mr. Legrone mentioned, it's $186,000.
Okay, and is that, because I know on grants, you know, you get an administrative fee and a portion of it, 20% or whatever that is. Is that what this grant would be if we get it?
It's strictly for staffing.
We would get $186,000. There is no match with this one. If we apply for the grant for the 186, we will get the 186, and that money will be utilized to pay this.
I'm not asking about matching. I'm asking about, in grants, usually you'll get, and they'll say
you know, when you write the grant, you put in for the 20% or whatever it is for administrative costs. I watch them
Sure.
in housing do it all the time. Is that built into this, or is that, no?
No, there is no administrative cost built into this.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Thompson.
Currently, as we all know, there's still ongoing issues with the campfire and helping those out. We have a lot of citizens who've moved here from Paradise. If my memory serves me correctly, Oroville was one of the per capita fastest growing cities in California this last year. Is that incorrect, or?
Second
That's in
highest, I
Chico, right?
believe.
Number 2. That is
Yeah.
true. That is correct.
So with that, there's a lot of people who've moved here, and I do know that you've been working with Gallagher's office specifically with certain bills to help those people. So I know I'm very grateful for Mr. Lando's help, and again, to reiterate, it's not specifically that the city's going to be spending the max. It's a contract consultant, and at an hourly rate not to exceed a certain amount. So I think this may sound like it's misconstrued, that out the door we're just writing a check for the full amount when it is a contract per hour position not to exceed. That's it. $84,000, right?
Yes. Councilmember Goodson.
Thank you for everyone's comments, and I appreciate that. I did not need clarification on this item in regards to Mr. Lando and his expertise with Campfire. I know that he has been working very diligently with Assemblyman Gallagher's office, and the effects that the Campfire, the impacts that it's had on our city and in surrounding communities. So I don't have a problem with that, but I would like someone to address to me the excerpt in this staff report that states Mr. Lando will work with the appointed person, and that is referring to now and officially Bill Lagrone as the city administrator, to help, and this is a quote, to help develop the appointed person. And so I am asking for clarification for our city administrator who has been put in this position at the highest step, $175,000. And bear in mind, I believe I looked this up the other evening, the city manager of Sacramento does not make that much. With that being said, I believe that we have appointed an expert that does not need hand-holding, because we have stated, and you have been appointed because you have the experience, you are more than qualified for this position at this rate of pay. And so once again, my concern is the excerpt that states you would need someone to come alongside of you to develop you as the appointed person. Can anyone address that?
I can, since I wrote it.
Thank you.
I wrote this staff report, and yes, you are correct. Mr. Lando has 30 years of plus experience. To let that walk away regardless of what I am or what I am not would be foolish. You are buying insurance, because any mistake that is made, because, and I'll be the first to readily admit, I've never been a city administrator before, and I very well may misstep. In order to avoid that misstep, Mr. Lando's there to assure that that won't happen, provide guidance, provide the voice of wisdom. To me, this is money that it's not just that we're focusing on that, but that is not the only issue here. It's one of the main issues that I thought was important to bring to the council, because I'm not going to come to the council and say I am the ultimate anything. I mean, as that may go, I will do the best job I can, and I will do everything I can to mitigate or to avoid any sort of problem or situation that could arise. And by keeping Mr. Lando here, keeping him working on the campfire issues, with the networking that he does, with the people that he networks that are much at a higher level than just local municipality, but at a state level, is in the best interest, I believe, for the city of Oroville.
I would like to comment on that as well. If we would have hired anyone else, would we have simply showed them to their office and said, here's your desk, good luck? No. Absolutely not. We would have had a consultant to work into this position and work alongside. And with the benefits that Mr. Lando brings to this city, I'm for one happy that he's available. Councilmember Pittman.
Thank you. You know, as I look at this in this staff report, I got to add something here. I've got a couple hundred hours of emergency management institute training back in Emmitsburg, Maryland, and I don't know how many hundreds of hours at the National Fire Academy. And we review case studies. There is no case study like this. The campfire is something that no one has a book on. No one has an idea of how big a deal this is. And we're still going to be figuring this out for the next 5 years. So at this point in time, to have someone as a consultant that can work with so many issues, you know, I'm going to say a lot of things here. Oroville may be a salvation to paradise. Oroville may be a huge new city that's going to probably be created out of times and things we don't even know right now. We can't even imagine. The unintended consequences of this event are going to be almost epic. And it's about ready to hit the media because of the videos, the movies that are being created, and all the other factors. So at this point in time, to have someone with a consultant expertise and to work on the campfire issues, it's just not campfire issues for Paradise, it's for the whole county. I mean, this county lost, you know, 2/3 of its residential housing inventory is gone. It's just not there. So this is an area where nobody's gonna, no college, no anybody can prepare you for. So at this point in time, I have to support this suggestion, and I also add the fact that we don't know what's gonna come tomorrow. I will tell you from other meetings I've attended, there is support coming from the federal government. And it might be in little bits or it might be in huge bits. And we need to be prepared for that. We have to be able to answer the phone when they call us. And that's what we need to have in this situation that I see coming forward the next 3 to 5 years. This is going to be an interesting struggle, conflict, education, and a true, I guess we could all write our own book about this, because this is something that is beyond anybody's ever seen scope. And the historians will write about how well we did with this. And I certainly support this issue. I think it's very wise and very efficient and effective government to move forward with. So thank you for my
Thank you,
time.
Councilman Pittman. Councilmember Goodson.
So here's my question, because I appreciate it, because, you know, I was specificity. I was addressing how Mr. Lando, and getting an understanding of how he is going to help develop you as the appointed person. So here's my next question. With that being said, I've heard about monies coming out of a potential grant, right? How, in the event that this is approved, how do we go about monitoring and separating the consultant fees for when you need the wisdom of Mr. Lando's expertise? And that component, separate from the campfire consultant component. How are those fees going to be divided? Is it an hourly? Who's going to clock this and monitor that?
to kind of give you an idea of a work day for me, I work 40 hours a week, probably whatever it's been when Mr. Lando's been here. I don't spend every minute with Mr. Lando in my office telling me do this, do that, do the next thing. What Mr. Lando will be available for, what I was trying to say in here, maybe I didn't communicate well, was he'll be available for the instance when I run into something I don't know what it is, or it's one of those things, you know how sometimes you do something or you think something or you say something or it just makes you feel funny? I mean, so because there's something in you telling you, hey, there's something just not right here.
Things that make you go,
Exactly.
Okay.
I got that same shelf. I mean, so, it would be in an instance like that where I would go to Mr. Lando and say, hey, this is what I'm thinking, this is what I'm seeing, this is what I think I'm going to do. What do you think about that? That's what I'm talking about in this. The vast majority of his time will be spent on campfire impacts.
Okay.
He'll just be available in the event. To me, and I don't know a good way to express this, but it's like buying insurance. I don't buy insurance with the intent to wreck my car, but I drive my car in a different way so I don't raise my insurance rate. So that's kind of what this is like to me, if that helps.
No, thank you. Yes, I definitely need and ask for clarification.
Yes, ma'am.
Looking for a motion on item 4.
I would move item 4 as agenda size.
Are there any people that wish to speak on this, Madam Clerk?
I have one speaker, Sherry Bunker.
Looking for a vote.
Oh, excuse me.
What? Oh.
This is a tough one.
Motion carries.
Thank you for serving, Mr. Tom, Mr. Lando.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on to public hearings. Gonna open this up for public hearings now.
Mr. Mayor, on item number 5, staff recommends that Councilman Hatley and Councilman Thompson, or Vice Mayor Thompson, recuse themselves.
Wow.
Yes, sir.
5.
Can I ask you a question real quick?
Yes, sir.
Because the way I'm looking at this and reading this thing, it looks like I'm gonna have a problem on 5, 6, 7, and 8, to me. Because of the way it's grouped together. Because there's some, not only the Cala Vista, but then there's, trying to think. The one that Sherwood, because that's right next to it, and then,
I'm going to recommend, Councilman Hatley, that you recuse yourself from 5 and 6.
okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Council. What you have before you tonight for the public hearing is the annual assessments for the City Consolidated Benefit Assessment District for Zone 5. Zone 5 is Cala Vista Estates. What the purpose of this benefit district is to collect dollars to maintain the stormwater infrastructure, manholes, drain pipes, etc., the retention ponds, and within that specific subdivision. This has been before you previously. The staff report was changed. I received some feedback from a constituent that recommended some changes. You have before you or with you tonight the engineer's report, but also we have added some maps to make it easier to look at what these districts particularly are. With this particular district, you would be looking at, in item number 5, it's going to be page 44. It's Cala Vista Estates. The assessment on this currently, well, that's great. We went right over the top of what the assessment is. Excuse me one second. The assessment currently in this district is 0. I apologize for this. The current assessment in this particular district is $0 per year, and the assessment that we're recommending at this time via the engineer's report is 0. So we're just maintaining the assessment district, where we're not doing any increase or changing anything in this particular district this year.
Thank you. Are there any comments on this item? Looking for a motion to adopt Resolution 8797.
Okay, I'll make a motion that we adopt resolution number 8797, authorizing and directing the mayor to approve the annual assessment report as submitted or amended, and to order the levy and collection of assessments for the Oroville Consolidated Benefit Assessment District for fiscal year 2019-20.
Madam Clerk, do we have any speakers on this item?
There are none.
Looking for a vote.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 6, Mr. Mayor, staff is recommending that Councilman Pittman and Councilman Smith recuse themselves from this matter. If one of you gentlemen would ask Vice Mayor Thompson to return. Mr. Mayor and Council, what this item is this is again the annual assessments for the city consolidated benefit districts, zones 1 through 4 and 6 through 8. Those zones include Linkside Place, Foothill Estates, Mission Olive Ranch, Vista del Oro, Martin Ranch, Jake Richter Estates, and Acacia Estates. What these monies are for, they're annually collected for the benefit district. It's a zone that is financially responsible for the maintenance of the stormwater infrastructure, the manholes, drain pipes, etc., including the water retention facilities within the specific subdivisions. This particular assessment is set at all of these districts at $0 currently. Staff is recommending that that assessment remains the same at 0, with the exception of Foothill Estates. Foothill Estates will be increased to $21.30.
Are there any comments? Looking for,
You know where my property is, or the property that I'm a part of on between Orange and Oro Dam, close to Acacia. So that's not interfering with this?
As long as you do not own the property and you
no.
have no financial interest in it.
I'm employed.
You're employed, no, but you have no financial interest in
Right.
the value of the property.
looking for a motion to adopt Resolution number 8798.
I make a motion that we adopt resolution as agenda-sized.
8798, and I second that.
Are there any comments from the public?
There are none.
Looking for a vote.
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, on item number 7, staff recommends that you recuse yourself and that you ask Councilman Hatley to return. Mr. Vice Mayor, what you have before you this evening for consideration is the annual assessments for the city's consolidated landscape and lighting maintenance district zones 11, 16, and 17. Those districts are Mission Olive Ranch, Acacia Estates, and Feather River Bluffs. What each of these zones are is a landscape and lighting district, that each zone is financially responsible for the maintenance of the landscaped areas dedicated to the city and for the cost of maintaining the city-owned street lights with the individual subdivisions. So what these dollars will be for is for the care and treatment of the public areas, the general areas that are in each of these subdivisions. Currently, staff has included a map of each of the subdivisions that are included in the packet that you received that denotes what each one of them are. There's also on the last page of item number 7 a chart that shows what the current assessments are and what the new assessment will be. 11, 16, and 17 are listed on there, and it does show the difference in the increases. If you would like, I could read those to you, or a person could look them up.
Are there any council members that would like them to be read?
No.
If not, looking for a motion.
I move that we adopt resolution number 8799.
I'll second that.
Motion carries.
Mr. Vice Mayor, on item number 8, staff recommends that Councilman Hatley and the Vice Mayor recuse themselves from this matter and ask the other gentleman to come back. We're playing musical chairs a little bit tonight. Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight is the annual assessments for the city's consolidated landscape and lighting maintenance assessment districts, zones 1 through 10, 12, 13, and 15. Those zones are Grandview Estates, The Buttes, Deer Creek Estates, Phase 1, Cala Vista Estates, Unit 1, Cherokee Estates, Phase 1, Sherwood Estates, Units 1 and 2, Greyhawk Estates, Cherokee Estates, Phase 2, Linkside Place, Phase 1, Foothill Estates, Vista del Oro, Cala Vista Estates, Unit 2, and Jake Richter Estates. What these benefit districts or lighting and landscaping districts are for each zone that is financially responsible for the maintenance of the landscaped areas dedicated to the city and at the cost of maintaining city-owned streetlights in individual subdivisions. This is for the common areas of these subdivisions where landscaping and lighting is provided, but the owners of the property are responsible for it. If you would like, on the last page of item number 7, which is very similar to this, it was broken in half because there was a conflict with some of the council and we had to split the council up. Item number 7 contains what the current assessments are and what the proposed assessments will be. If the council would like, those could be read aloud, or an individual could be referred to that item to review those at their leisure.
I have no reason to hear it out loud. Is there anyone else that wishes to?
No.
Are there any comments on this item? Looking for a motion to adopt resolution number 8800.
I move that we adopt resolution number 8800.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, are there any comments from the public?
I do not have any speaker cards on this item.
Looking for a vote?
Motion carries.
Mr. Mayor, on item number 9, staff continues to recommend that Councilman Hatley and Vice Mayor Thompson recuse themselves from this matter. So moving into that, this is the annual special tax for the city's Community Facilities District. It's referred to as the West Side Public Safety Facility. This is set up when the subdivisions went in, and dollars are collected each year in order to establish a West Side Safety Facility in the west part of town, which was typically out by the airport, if that helps people, golf course area, airport. Currently, we're collecting dollars in there to build a fire station, and then once that fire station is built, to staff that fire station. This is an assessment that was agreed upon, and two, when the individuals purchased the home, as a condition of the purchase of the home. And so this is the annual reaffirmation of that. So we are taking that to the council each year so that that is reaffirmed and sent to the tax collector, and those dollars are collected. They're specifically kept in our budget, and they're earmarked specifically for those. You can find them in our budget under West Side Safety Facility 2000 and I believe it's 2006, 1 and 2.
Any comments?
Yes, quick comment. Just for the public to understand, the Mellows Rouge Community Facilities District is specific money generated for police and fire, period. We can't use the money for anything else. So I know it's a little extra for the folks that live there, but that money is dedicated solely. These are the only two community facilities districts under Mellows Rouge in the entire county. There was an effort trying to get the county to also put together these same districts so that police and fire could be funded, whether it's in the city or the county. But as yet, these are still the only two left in Butte County. So I want to make that comment that Oroville, struck ahead in that issue. So thank you.
Councilmember Goodson.
Chief, do you have an update? Can you give an update and just some information to the public in regards to this community facility? The Westside Public Safety Facility, this special tax has been ongoing since year what? And what do we anticipate in the short or long term?
My understanding is that this tax came into play somewhere around 2002, and we've been collecting money since then. What happened in the particular area was there was an expected build-out of subdivisions. That build-out never included, so the monies that were collected came in very slowly. The current balance in both the accounts as of 7/1 for the facility itself, which would be the walls, the doors, all of those things, is $546,970. The part two of it, which is the balance for funding employees to be in that particular building once we build it, would be $597,752. Neither one of those are enough money to either build the facility or to operate it for very long term. So where we're at with this right now is we have identified a location. It'll be on the airport. We have had plans drawn, so we have expended some of those dollars to begin this process. And right now what we're doing is we're just trying to collect those monies and get them to a reasonable amount so that we can build the facility. The estimated build out of the facility was somewhere around, at a very bare bones facility using metal structures and things like it, was about $1.8 million. So that's the kind of the target we have to hit, and then we have to start staffing that. The staffing issue is already being absorbed by the police and the fire department. They're already handling the calls in the area. This is something that would decrease the response time by having an engine or a truck in that area staffed.
Thank you.
Looking for a motion to adopt resolutions 8801, 8802, and 8803.
I move that we adopt resolution number 8801, 8802, and 8803.
I'll second that.
Madam Clerk, are there any speakers?
I do not have any speakers on this item.
Looking for a vote.
Motion carries.
So, point of order, I believe there's also the requirement to authorize the mayor to sign the Proposition 218 certificates for inclusion in the 2019-20 Butte County tax roll. So that should be a separate motion.
Looking for a motion to authorize the mayor to sign Proposition 218 certificates.
I'll make a motion that we authorize the mayor to sign the Proposition 218 certificate for the inclusion of the 2019-20 Butte County tax roll.
Second that.
Looking for a vote.
Motion carries.
Moving on to item number 10.
Mr. Mayor and Council, what you have before you tonight is to consider a request for a designation of a voting delegate to be sent to the California League of Cities annual conference. The annual conference this year will be in Long Beach. Last year, Councilperson Goodson went to this, represented us well there, and was our voting delegate. This is very much a very similar item as what occurred last year. The voting delegate will go down there and weigh in for advocacy issues and positions of the city so that the League of Cities can determine what their advocacy will be. So just so we're really clear on this, the advocate or the person that goes, if a person goes, or a group of contingents of council people go, you don't set policy for the League of City. You vote toward what the policies of the League of City will pursue and advocate for. So this is something that is probably worthwhile to participate in. Councilperson Goodson can probably speak to that more than myself. I did not attend this. This year, again, it's going to be in Long Beach. It is from October 17th through October, I believe it's through the 16th through the 18th. The price estimations that were put on the staff report are for not only the accommodations, the airfare, but also the registration.
All right, so we have two options here. Looking for comment on this. Council or Vice Mayor Thompson, please.
Is it that they rotate back and forth between Southern California and Northern California each year? Is that, because I know it was Sacramento last year, right?
No, it was actually
it
in
was down there
Southern
as well?
California. Usually they do. This year, for some reason, they have it in Long Beach again this year.
Sacramento, living in Sacramento, it's the convention center is being renovated, and so they weren't able to use Sacramento this year.
So when what was that, 2 years ago they did Sacramento, or
2 years ago. Yeah.
2 years ago, yes.
so there's a rotation back and forth?
Normally it rotates back and forth, yes, sir.
I did look, I didn't attend it last year. I know that Councilwoman Goodson can speak to it, but I did check it out, and it just looks a little redundant, but
I think there's, outside of the legislative advocacy that goes on, there's also some very good, I believe, training opportunities and classes that are provided that, I would encourage a council person that did attend it to, find those things that if they have an interest in and attend those classes, because it is good training for that. It's also a good opportunity to network with other council members from other councils that may be experiencing similar type struggles and issues and get a different perspective of how they've addressed those issues.
Training in what capacity?
It's all sorts of training. Most of the training that occurs are based around adult learning concepts, where it's talk to you. There's some interaction with you. Sometimes they go as far as breakout groups, but I'm not even going to start on that because I hate breakout groups. But that's just a personal thing.
Why would anyone who already got the job need further training?
Well, I think that there's always an opportunity to sharpen your skills, and if nothing else, listening from someone else's perspective and taking it in from there. And sometimes it's training takes many different forms. Sometimes that's just life experience or experiencing something.
Thank you. Councilmember Draper's in the queue.
2 years ago, Marlene Del Rosario and I went, and we each paid the $500 or whatever it was registration because the city was in financial straits. And we got a lot out of it. And one of the 3 days that Marlene couldn't be there, she allowed Councilwoman Goodson to attend. And we went to every workshop. They dealt with issues from homelessness to budget problems, to you name it. It's really a helpful conference, in my opinion. So it's, I think, really advisable for someone on this council to go. in Chico, I know the mayor and 3 of the councilors went last year. And so, yeah, it's a common thing in cities that people attend these.
Councilmember Smith.
What's the deadline? When do we have to make this decision? We
in
don't
order-
have to do it tonight, in other words.
Well, we have to do it by, there's deadline pricing that if we wait and we go outside of that.
I think it's August, beginning of August.
Yeah,
or
I believe it's
something
the first part of August. I think
that
it's
it
prior
goes up.
to the first I think it's the 1st of August. You know, I did read this. I didn't
August
retain-
14th.
Okay, so it would have to be, if you do not make a decision tonight and you want to push this off, you can make your decision at the August 6th meeting, and we can still get the best pricing.
Because I think, at least for me, it's schedule. I mean, I'd love to go, but, you know, I just didn't really have enough time to evaluate my personal schedule to see if I can clear the runway. But I think all these things are of great value. I think that's already been well stated.
I'd recommend we table this till August 6th. Looking for a motion?
I second that we table it.
Technically, a motion hasn't been made.
Okay, make a
So
motion
you
that we
make a
table it.
I'll second.
Whatever. And by the way, I do agree that there are values in going to conferences. Just if it's going to be coming back to Sacramento potentially next year.
Motion carries.
Okay, moving on to reports, discussions, correspondence. Are there any council announcements? Councilmember Draper?
Just reporting on attendance. July 3rd, I attended the Continuum of Care Grant Training Meeting in Chico. July 15th, I attended the Continuum of Care meeting here in Oroville from 1 to 3. And we were all very happy to hear that an award was made to the Oroville Rescue Mission by the ad hoc committee of the Continuum of Care. $272,875 from HEAP and Cash One funding, and also $45,000 from HEAP funding for food storage and other capital purchases. So they got a total of $317,000, it looks like, from the HEAP and Cash One funding. And there is another round of funding coming up for Cash Two that applicants can try to apply for. So we're hoping that more money might be coming to Oroville. Oh, and I wasn't able to attend the OPD meet and greet, although I wanted to. We have grandkids here from out of state and family things going on. But I was able to bring 200 paper plates and napkins and go to Chico the day before and pick up 2 $300 bikes that Dax Downey donated. They were $500?
$599 each.
Well, he told me they were, that was the total.
Looked at the receipt.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, kudos to Dax Downey of Green Line Cycles. And the kids who won those have the ability to take them in if they don't like the color or the model and exchange them. And there's a 1-year warranty on repairs and that kind of thing. So it was a very gracious donation.
Thank you. Councilmember Smith?
Yeah, I'm too, just like to weigh in on the COC and what happened. It was wonderful to see one of our nonprofits receive dollars, long overdue as we think about the challenge we have as a community with homelessness and its impacts on each and every one of us. And so certainly we're looking to other nonprofit agencies to step up to the plate and to go after, as I think was already stated, additional cash dollars that are going to be available. I also just want to shout out to our librarian, Melanie Lightbody. I want to make sure I said her name correctly, because she came alongside the Oroville Rescue Mission, Steve Terry and Annie, and really helped with some technical assistance. You know, these grants can be very arduous and challenging, And so she just offered her assistance to them. And I really think, again, just help push that, over the edge. And so it's just good news that we're well on our way. A comment I made in the COC was, Chico has a very aggressive policy as it pertains to policing, especially the criminal element with homelessness. And of course, they, where they bring them to when they get arrested. Yeah, here. And then so when they're released, where they go. Here. And so we're in desperate need of a program that then can begin to address that. And so I'm very, very encouraged by this positive momentum. Additionally, I sit on the Arts Commission, and it's just amazing through time how much institutional information has been lost. We have over $100,000 sitting in an account when it comes to art and public art. And so we're going to be grappling with that, because it was just fascinating to me sitting on that commission how little anyone really knew about policy, procedure, how NOFAs within that commission are established. And so there's a little bit of money there, and we're going to be tackling that. I don't want to get the cart before the horse or say anything I shouldn't, but just that we need to get the ball rolling, as a community. And so I'm looking forward to that. And then another thing that popped up, how many of you all, and I know the mayor weighed in on this as well, the odor that we've noticed the last week. It was, if you read Facebook at all, there was quite a bit of conversation about that. And so I had a couple of people reach out to me, and immediately my go-to is, well, who's the agency that deals with, air? And it's the Air Quality Management District. And so I contacted those folks up there in Chico. And so this is just important information for all of us to bear in mind. As everyone was weighing in and grumping about it, I called to make the complaint. And then I asked the Air Quality Management District, so what does it take for you folks to do something about that? And, well, you need a few more folks to make a complaint. Well, how many is that anyway? 5? Well, how many beside me have made a complaint? None. So again, I think it's just, again, public education, that so when we notice something, we need to, that old adage, you need to tell somebody something, and then we need to, of course, reach out to the appropriate, agencies then to take action. And I'm very grateful that our chief, now Administrator Legrone, took some action and stepped into that situation. I don't know if he wanted to speak to it or not, but it's definitely being addressed in spite of the Air Quality Management District folks. And then one other thing I just wanted to, just as a request, I was fortunate enough to find out about the meet and greet that happened over at Martin Luther King Park, and it was a great event. But I found out about it kind of last minute. And so any kind of programs, I think, that the city that we're sponsoring, that we're engaging in, I don't know what the policy is or what can be done for more lead time. As you know, in my other life, we're about information. And the folks that work for me are pretty good about keeping up on top of websites and information, and my goodness, we were a little bit in the dark on this till the last minute. So just and again, I'm not chastising, I'm just saying, boy, it'd be great for us to know, to have a little more lead time to get the good word out, because it was a great event. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, me and Bill actually jumped in the car and tracked that odor down. Didn't take long, couple of windows rolled down, and we spoke to the owner, and he was very cooperative in negating that. He's working on it. So it was rotting fruit that they process for different things. So, but anyway, he was very cooperative. I personally would like to thank Eric Smith for his performance on the COC, because he, with his hard work and diligence, diverted funds that we were under the impression were down the road and not available, and he diverted these things $1.5 million, and over 300,000 of that came to Oroville, and I would like to credit him with that, because it's his input and expertise that has pushed this. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Councilmember Smith.
Cool.
Councilmember Goodson?
Yes, July 3rd, I attended the Continuum of Care meeting as well. I just wanted to, it was informational for me. I know that there are other nonprofit organizations that have responded to the homeless situation. They have rolled up their sleeves and they are making every effort to advocate for this culture. So I wanted to get some information in regards to what an HMIS is and certainly the upcoming funding streams, not stream, but streams. I also attended the Planning Commission. Once again, there was an agenda item that has been postponed for 3 times. And so we're hoping that there will be a decision, a light at the end of the tunnel, very favorably, come October 24th, if not before. I also attended an NAACP meeting last night. There were 2 keynote speakers, one addressing homelessness and housing in Butte County, and the other speaker, Lisa Courier. She is a Butte County peer advocate for mental health, and she was very instrumental in bringing behavioral health services to our penal system here at Butte County. Our community and police meet and greet this year was our 4th year. It gets bigger and better. We are exploring a different date for this event. It has been hard because we definitely want to hold it in the summer months, but we were having a problem with a lot of the graduations and people going on vacation. So hopefully we're looking at maybe the beginning of May. Kudos, applaud everyone, all the organizations that were instrumental in making this once again a very successful event. And I just want to give a shout out to Miss Deal. Woo! Los Plumas cheerleaders strutted their stuff. And I'm just going to say it, Mother Goose was in the forefront. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Pittman?
Couple items. One thing you may not be aware of, but with the SCORE plant is not just operating normally, the other facilities for the construction workers that have been placed here in Oroville have created a situation where they're daily receiving about 100,000 gallons by truck to the plant. So they're paying for it, but at the same time, that's a lot of extra work. So there's a lot of folks that we are behind the back scenes that don't get the credit that are really working a little extra here. So I want to make sure to mention that. Also, of course, the fireworks went off really well. I want to thank all the public agencies from DWR, State Parks, Butte County Sheriff's Office, Oroville Police Department, Oroville Fire Department, Feather River Recreation Park District, CHP, just a ton of folks put that event together. And I think Oroville's unique that it had a very public family event. And I happened to go out there and enjoy the ballpark was just full of kids and families and soccer games going on, and it was just a lot of fun that went happened that night. And the fireworks did turn out quite well. I think it was a nice show. The other quick mention I want to mention too, and Mr. Lando is involved in it, but the Rule 20A undergrounding for Meyer Street, and I'm sure he's going to talk about it, but I go back to when I was serving on the city council in 2008, 2009. We started that project, and now it's finally come to a point where PG&E will start to underground the Meyer Street from Mesa Street going south. I'm not sure how far, I'll let him tell how far, but we also did a streetscape planning project and engineering when we had the redevelopment agency to, once the undergrounding was all in, we'd come back later on and put in some nice additions to that neighborhood for that retail business area. I know we don't have the funding today, but I would like to know, maybe we can make a phone call to the engineers that put that report together, just to have a sticker number that they had a number back then, and it'd be nice to know an updated current number. We can't strive for something unless we don't know what the number is, and I roughly remember at 900,000, but whatever it is today, it'd be nice to know that number. Maybe we could work on it in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilmember Pittman. I know you were instrumental in the fireworks, and thank you for everything you do. You really do. I mean, as well as everybody up here, we're all community-minded, but I think I just see you a lot, so you're everywhere. Thank you. Vice Mayor Thompson.
I was going to say, going to mention the same thing for Councilmember Pittman. Absolutely an amazing fireworks show. If you haven't, is it going to be the 4-bay next year?
Oh, I believe so, yeah.
If you own a kayak, if you don't own one, I strongly encourage you to get one, because the best seating is in the water, as close as you can get. That's where my wife and I saw Sheriff Honey out there on the water as well, but viewed the fireworks from the water, and you get it double because it's up in the sky and it's reflecting off the water, and the water was just glass. It was absolutely beautiful. So definitely amazing family event, and so we're planning on bringing friends and whatnot to be out there on the kayaks with us next year. So also was at the meet and greet. I'm not sure where the breakdown in communication was, but I did thank you for Mayor Chuck for giving me a call that morning. I was abating some trash at our church property. We're always dealing with homeless breaking into certain areas and leaving trash and whatnot. So we were doing a dump run of stuff that was left around the property, and as well as some of our own stuff, but found out about it, went home, changed, and it was a great event. And again, the cheerleaders, the other Hmong dancers that were there, it was really well. And Bobby Jones and his announcing skills, it was just really well done, so kudos. Just maybe somehow the council could find out more about it in advance next year would be great.
I'd like to comment on that too. I was there as well, and that's a beautiful park, and I would really like to see more participation. We really didn't know too much about it. I don't know, and I spoke to Pastor Thompson about that, about maybe helping a little bit with getting the word out, so we can have better participation. But it was an excellent event. I've got ties to that park. Me and my dad built those restrooms and that amphitheater, and it's nice to see it in full use. Thank you. Councilmember Goodson.
I just have to say this. Chief Deal, I believe you started sharing the drafting of and the community meetings in regards to that meet and greet from the very beginning. I recall you mentioning it several times, and so we just have to do better next year, but I know that you are going to comment on that.
I did bring it up in here. I understand that sometimes there's about a month between the meeting here and the actual event. We did speak about it in here on the last 2 council meetings. I guess the best, we could probably put it out on social media a little bit better maybe. Unfortunately, our social media platform at the police department went down, and we've just now started rebuilding that. So aside from that, it's probably about the best I can do is put it out on that.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.
Was thinking maybe an announcement marquee or digital board. I know there's advertising and things that we have a couple digital boards there, but maybe we could do something like that. You know, look into that. Eye catcher. So, are there any more comments or reports? Any National Night Out?
Mr. Mayor, if I could just jump in with just a couple things. August 6th will be the National Night Out, the Municipal Auditorium. I believe that it begins at 6 o'clock. Is it 4 o'clock? Okay. It's at 4 o'clock. The other thing regarding the information not getting out, one of the things that we've done this week is we've begun the process of reassigning some duties of one of our employees. So we're going to have somebody working with social media, our websites and things like that to constantly update what's going on with the city. I think the council does a lot of good things that people don't hear about. They don't know how it happened or when it happened or anything else because we don't do a very good job of telling our story. We let everybody else tell it for us, and sometimes it's not necessarily what happened. So we are addressing that issue. I recognize that as a problem for our city and something that we can do better to inform our everyone that lives here of what is going on. So that will be addressed. And it was a very nice meet and greet. The hamburgers were great people to spend the morning with, and I agree that is a very hot day every year.
Thank you. Tom, did you?
Yeah, very quickly. Rule 28, I just want to caution. It is true PG&E is coming up and they have asked to meet with us. There's typically cost going from the property to their line, and so we want to be careful to make sure that this thing really makes sense. But they are coming up next week to talk about it. Assemblyman Gallagher's introduced an infrastructure bill, which would mean potentially substantial money, particularly for sewer, probably road as well. It's got a long way to go. Anybody who's been through that process knows that starting it and finishing are a big difference. And then, as was mentioned, Assembly Bill 430 is actually at its last committee right now, which is the CEQA exemption for new housing.
Thank you. Ruth? Thank you. Mr. Attorney?
I don't know why you give an attorney a free microphone at the end of the meeting, but I have nothing to say. I won't take
I'm
you
just
up on an offer.
trying to learn something, sir. You intellectually stimulate the conversation.
Well, I don't know about that. Maybe Mr. Huber does. I certainly don't.
Okay, Leo.
Is this on? Okay. Well, first off, I've been working with Chief Deal on tightening up the bid documents and for the remodel of the PD. So that's getting pretty exciting, getting close to that. He's been chasing down a couple things with the contractor. Additionally, we continue to have quite a bit of interest in some of our old existing previously dormant subdivisions, and we're getting quite a bit of work going on that, as well as moving forward on possible annexations on 3 different projects right now. So we're just getting in the starting stages of those. So pretty exciting. Quite a bit of interest in building housing here. It's all market rate, but we're looking on some of them about getting some affordable concepts involved with that. So anyway, that's kind of where it's going. It's all in the entitlement stage, but it's pretty exciting stuff. So
Thank you. Chief?
I know contrary to what we've discussed about the announcements, the fire department, the police department appreciate the council that we're able to find the time to come out to the meet and greet. They appreciate the support. And just so we're very clear, I know we've hit on it a little bit. National Night Out's a community event that's been going on for decades that has tried to bridge a gap between police and the community. And millions of neighbors participate in it across thousands of neighborhoods every year in August. Our event is August 4th. It's Thursday. It's in the evening. I'm sorry, it's Tuesday, August 4th in the evening. It's from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. It's held at, did I say the 4th? I'm sorry, it's the 6th.
He said 6th.
It is the 6th. I'm not looking at my notes
Show
right
up
now
on the
while I'm trying to
5th,
talk to
it'll
you. So we're very clear. August 6th, 4 p.m. to 8 p.m., Municipal Auditorium. The police department would welcome anybody in the community that wants to come out. Obviously, the support of the council would be appreciated if it's possible, and we're hoping to swear in and/or introduce some of our most recent hired employees at the police department on that evening.
Great.
So, Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yes, we
Yes,
do.
it's actually held on that Tuesday. It's usually something that council members have came to at the end. If it's possible, If it's not, it's understood as well.
Mr. Mayor, if I could, on those particular days, what we normally do is we either meet earlier or we conduct our business. I believe we've done it there at one of the national night outs. I would suggest if it's reasonable with the council, because we're going to have a full agenda that day. It's already formulated and growing in my office. So I would suggest that we probably, if the council can do it, meet at 2 o'clock, try to wrap up our business within a couple hours, and then head over to the national night out, if that works for everyone on the council.
I think we can let you know within a day or two, but that sounds good to me.
Good with me.
Okay. Okay. It sounds like the immediate consensus is 2 o'clock would be fine.
And just a reminder, we're going to adjourn to closed session after this.
Yes. Okay, if there's nothing else, we're going to adjourn to closed session. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, that's bad. I don't know how you do it. Were you involved in that muck stuff? Stench? You weren't. That was the girl?